Hello, I'm Preston Smith, and I'm currently participating in the Pro-Con Challenge for this current debate tournament. Thank you. I'm in congressional debate, so I chose to do a bill or resolution from the legislation of this year. The legislation I chose to put forth and use is a resolution to suspend Russia from the United Nations Security Council. I'll first read the bill before going through a pro and a con speech. Thank you. A resolution to suspend Russia from the United Nations Security Council. Whereas Russia's recent actions have been dangerous and inappropriate, and whereas Russia is impeding global peace and security, and whereas Russia is blocking key work due to membership on the Security Council, and whereas member nations can vote to suspend nations from the United Nations under Article 18. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Congress here assembled that the United States shall urge other UN member nations to use Article 18 to suspend Russia from the Security Council. And be it further resolved that the United Nations will suspend the 20% of the UN budget that is voluntarily contributed if this action is not taken by the 2025. Introduced for congressional debate by Landon Jacobs from Davis High School. I so move. I'll first go through my pro speech. Recently, many of you have probably realized that violence has occurred or erupted in the area of Ukraine and Russia. Russia viciously attacked Ukraine, and they have hurt so many humanitarian efforts, and hundreds of thousands of people have died. This is a problematic thing that needs to be stopped. We cannot just allow Russia to tear down its neighbors for the reasons of conquering. Russia is a lot like an imperialistic country. Their only objective is to conquer because they cannot expand with their economy. They need to conquer in order to expand their economy. And we have to stop them or they will continue to expand, and we can't do anything about it. Because if they keep to expand long enough, we won't be able to stop them. We have to stop them here and now. But with all these different problems, we can't even send relief to the Ukrainians because Russia is on the United Nations Security Council. The United Nations Security Council is a group of 5 member nations and temporary seats. The 5 permanent members are the United States, France, China, Russia, and the United Kingdom. As long as Russia is on the Security Council, the United Nations will not be able to send humanitarian relief when it is needed. Humanitarian relief is needed to Ukraine now. And if Russia is on the Security Council, they can veto anything. And if one member vetoes it, that proposition is dead in the water. Nothing can happen. It's completely dead. But my first contention, the United Nations should push for peace throughout the world. They can't do that with aggressors like Russia and even China on the Security Council. With the current situation of the Security Council, Ukraine will never be able to get official United Nations aid because any country on the Security Council can veto a resolution. As my second point. For my third point, it would make it easier to pass resolutions. Out of all the United Nations Security Council members, Russia / the Soviet Union, because Russia took over their seat, has used their veto power more than any other country. Russia has used their veto power 128 times, more than any other country. They obviously are not enjoying the legislation that is being brought forth. We need to stop them so that the United Nations can continue with its primary objective, to pursue peace. Thank you. And now for the con argument, the neg. Okay. How many of you have enjoyed an economy that has mostly bounced back after a recession or a crisis. If we ban Russia from the United Nations Security Council, then it will impact our world trading, and it will hurt our economy severely. I would also like to state that this resolution, I might say, would be nearly impossible to enforce and require the United Nations to remove Russia from the United Nations entirely. Russia would have to be completely removed, and this would be nearly impossible. Pushing for Russia to be kicked out of the Security Council, for my first contention, would create a rift in U.S. relations, of whom the U.S. heavily relies on for oil. As many of you remember, earlier this year, President Joe Biden put a tariff on Russian oil because of the war in Ukraine. And what happened because of that was the United States had the value of the U.S. dollar tanked, because instead of Russia relying on the U.S. for their backing of their system, they relied on the Chinese yen, which severely tanked the value of the U.S. dollar. For my second contention, if the U.S. pushed for Russia to be kicked off the Security Council, it could threaten a World War III, because the U.S. and Russia are some of the largest powers, both economically and militaristically, and it would be a World War III of Russia and its allies versus all who oppose them. It would be complete turmoil. And for my third and final point, it could be considered unfair to many, and the U.S. could get much lashback from countries worldwide, because Russia was actually one of the founding members of the United Nations. Russia was one of the reasons the U.S. was able to defeat the Nazis in World War II. It could make U.S. allies less likely to help the U.S. in war endeavors, which could hurt the United States' future war efforts. Thank you.